Assalamualaikum and hello everyone. Welcome to the video for 4.3 isomerism. Where in this video, we're going to define chirality center and enantiomer, identify the chirality center, explain optical activity of a compound, and draw a pair of enantiomer using 3D formula. Okay, so we have learned about stereoisomer. Previously, we have learned about cis trans, right? So in this video, we're going to look at the last type of isomer we're going to learn in this chapter. Okay, so on your notes, it will be on page 12. Okay, so the last type of stereoisomer we're going to learn is about optical isomerism. The other name for it is actually enantiomer. Okay, so here it mentioned that the optical activity is the ability of crystal or solution of certain substance to rotate the plane of plane polarized light. And when the substance that can rotate the plane is said to be optically active, and the optically active substance is actually possess similar structure formula but differ in the effect of plane polarized light are called optical isomer. So it means that actually it have the same structure formula tapi dia ada different arrangement of atom in space. Okay, so for the cis trans, we have learned there are requirement for the molecule to exhibit the cis trans isomerism. The same goes for the optical isomerism. The molecule must possess certain requirement lah, possess certain characteristic. So the first one for the requirement of optical isomer is actually the molecule must contain a chiral carbon or chirality center. So what is a chirality center? Chirality center is an sp3 hybridized carbon atom with 4 different group attached. So kan, other name for it is actually simple nak tahu. You must have 4 single bond and each of the bond tu must have different atom. Okay, and then for the chiral carbon tu, we must label it with asterisk. We're going to label it as star. Okay, so for example A, let's do it together. Okay, yang ini dia dah buat macam ni kan, in 3D arrangement. Okay, so first we're going to check for this one. What we're going to check, because this is carbon, check for each of the carbon itself. So this carbon is actually attached to 3 hydrogen, right? So is it a chiral carbon? No, because remember must 4 different group attached. So this is not a chiral carbon. Okay, so for this case, this carbon, okay, this carbon attached to CH3, hydrogen, attached to nitrogen, and then attached to all of this group. So when we see it here, this carbon actually is attached to 4 different group. So here is actually our chiral carbon. So we have to label the star. Okay, but then for the case of optical isomerism, you have to check each of the carbon. Because remember chiral carbon, chirality center. So nitrogen, we're not going to check. Here carbon. The same goes here because it already attached to 3 hydrogen atoms. So it means that it is not attached to 4 different group. Okay, so next. Here, we have another carbon. Okay, this carbon, here attached to hydrogen, OH, our benzene ring, and the carbon that attached to all of this. So, here, since it is attached to 4 different groups, and it also has a 4 single bond, kan? So, here is actually our chirality center as well. Okay, next actually, okay, this is benzene ring. Benzene ring is actually C6H6. So, C6H6. But then again, remember, we want it to be sp3 hybridized. So, it means it have 4 single bond. But does it have 4 single bond? Maknanya, A carbon ni ada 1, 2 single bond, 1 double bond. So, this one, our benzene ring cannot be a chirality center ataupun chiral carbon. Okay, so this is actually, for this case, this two is our chiral carbon. Okay, so yang ini dia dapat arrangement dia. It seems very nice kan? Kita sendiri dah tahu macam mana. Okay, how about if they given to you the molecular formula macam ni? So, how we're going to do it? So, first trick is actually, first step, what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to make an expanded structure. So, for the case of expanded structure, first is CH3, and then this is the first carbon. Second carbon is carbon here. We have second carbon, hydrogen, and attached to it, actually our OH. So here, I'm going to write OH, and then here we have the third carbon is COOH, which is our carboxylic acid. So carboxylic acid is this one, C double bond O, OH. Okay, remember that for the chiral carbon or the charity center, check each of the carbon itself. So this carbon, can it be a chiral carbon? No, because it attached to the same atom 3 dah kan? So this is not a chiral carbon. Okay, so this carbon, okay, attached to one OH, one CH3, one hydrogen, and another one C double bond OH. So here you have, it has 4 different group attached. So this is actually our chiral carbon. Okay, next is our COOH. Okay, but then here what it has is actually 2 single bond and 1 double bond. What we want is actually here, sp3 hybridized carbon atom, which is 4 single bond with 4 different group attached lah. Okay, so for this case, this is actually our chiral carbon. So for a given compound, what you're going to do is actually check each of the carbon itself. But for example, C and D here is actually a cyclic structure where it shows, they ask you to determine, is it a chiral carbon or not? Okay, for cyclic structure, dia macam tricky a bit, but let's do it together. Okay, so for this one, what I would like to do is actually first I'm going to draw a line here. So macam draw in the middle dekat yang dia minta tu kan. So I'm going to draw here. Okay. So maknanya dia nak tahu this carbon is it chiral or not. So this is actually our carbon. But then what I would like to do is actually I'm going to make an expanded structure jap. So here is actually CH2. Here pun CH2. Remember, each carbon must have 4 bonds. So CH, CH, CH. This one pun CH, CH, CH. Okay. So, from this, then it is easier for you to know. Contohnya sini middle C kan. Okay, sini H dengan CH3. So, we're just going to draw ni H, ni CH3. So, this one. Okay, how about the cyclic structure ni? So that's why I would like to draw a line in the middle, because actually kat sini senang nak nampak. Sebenarnya dekat sini CH2, CH2. Okay, this one is actually this one. Okay, and then this carbon pun attached pada CH2, CH2 sini kan. So here I'm going to take CH2, CH2. So when we check it here, is it attached to 4 different group? Okay, ni hydrogen, CH3. Okay, they're 2 different. Okay, CH2, CH2. Tapi ni pun CH2, CH2. So, because it has 2 of the same group, so this is not a chiral carbon. So, this lah, not a chiral carbon. Okay, so this is the example C. Now let's look for example D. This is a cyclic example, but then here it shows to you 2 of the carbon itself. So let's look. Okay, first thing first, I'm going to do the first one here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to draw a line here, and then what we're going to do is actually make it expanded. Okay, in this case, we're going to draw, this is carbon. Here is carbon. I'm going to draw the carbon. And then make sure each of the carbon must have 4 bonds. So here must have hydrogen as well. My carbon here. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. Okay, so this is for the case of carbon here. Okay, so for that carbon, okay, so it is bonded to OH and bonded to H. OH and H is actually this one, and it's bonded to CH2, CH3. Panjangnya. Okay, the CH2, CH3. Okay, and then this part is CH2, CH2. So here CH2, CH2. So this is for the carbon here. Okay, so when you look here, is it a chiral carbon? Okay, when you look, it's bonded to OH, H, okay, 2 different groups. Here CH2, CH3, here CH2, CH2. So here we have 4 different groups. So it means that this is actually a chiral carbon. So I'm going to draw a line here, an asterisk. I'm going to label it as an asterisk. Okay, and then next one, we're going to look for this carbon. Okay, so for this part, actually when we draw it here, ke sini kan ada carbon here kan. Yang ini you don't have to include it as well lah. Sebab yang ini line dia betul-betul kena dekat sini kan. Okay, there's no need for you to include. Sebab tak tahu nak include dekat sini ke nak include for this one. So it's fine. So let's look for this case. For this case, I'm going to use the red one. Okay, so it means that the carbon here is bonded to hydrogen and CH3. So I'm going to draw hydrogen and CH3. And then another one is actually we have Here this case, kat sini kita akan ambil yang CH2 ni. We're going to take this CH2. So here our CH2. Okay, this one CH2CHOH. So CH2CHOH. Okay, so this is actually, when we see it here, we can see it is bonded to 4 different groups. So this is actually a chiral carbon, which we have to label with our asterisk. Okay, so actually most of it, it will given to you based upon the molecular formula like this. Ini memang tricky question lah if it's given to you. A cyclic structure. So for a cyclic structure, memang the hint is actually we have to draw a middle line, and then you have to draw this one lah, yang show what is 4 different group tu. So then check if it has 4 different group, then we have to label it as asterisk. It means that the molecule contain a chiral carbon. Okay, so that is the first requirement. Okay, so once the molecule, we have determined that the molecule contain a chiral carbon. Next, what we're going to do is actually, when the molecule contain a chiral carbon, it's actually the molecule itself is not super impossible with its mirror image. Okay, so for the case of enantiomer ni, it's important first to determine the chiral center. Next is actually to draw this one. Okay, so how to draw this? This is actually, once you have drawn, that's why I would like to draw in terms of this one, because later we're going to draw the 3-dimensional image of the molecule to know the arrangement in space. Okay, so how we're going to draw it later, we're going to do it together. But then again, this is actually an example of our chiral carbon, right? It's bonded to 4 different groups. Okay, so here it mentioned that in plane, the in plane, so that's why we have one line and one line here. Okay, bond that lie behind the plane. Kat sini, we're going to draw a wedge here. A dash wedge here. A dash wedge. And yang wedge kat sini, yang tebal ni, is actually bonds that project out of the plane. Okay, the arrangement of atom tu tak kisah yang mana. Tapi yang paling pentingnya, for the 3D image tu, you have to know mesti ada ni lah. Ada 2 line yang macam biasa, ada 1 wedge, ada 1 dash wedges. Okay, once you have draw one part, and then we're going to draw the mirror image of it. So kat sini lah yang example dia. So make sure the chiral carbon tu memang kena bonded to 4 different group. Then we can draw this part, and then we have to label it as enantiomer, the name of our isomerism itself. Okay, so let's look for the examples. Okay, so let's look at the example. So as we can see, example 1 dia dah buat structure macam ni. We can see in the middle here is our chiral carbon. Okay, sebab yang carbon yang lain ni ada attached pada the same group, only the carbon in the middle sahaja yang attached to 4 different group, maka that is our chiral carbon. Okay, so then we're going to draw the enantiomer. So enantiomer ni adalah our mirror image. So here ni Miss jadikan as my reference. Okay, so in the middle is my chiral carbon. Lepas tu I'm going to draw the line yang in plane. In plane we're going to draw straight line macam biasa by my orange colour tu. Okay, and then Miss nak lukis yang out of plane. Out of plane Miss nak guna colour pink ni is wedge tu, yang out of plane. And then behind the plane I'm going to do the dash wedge, a dash wedge. Lepas tu Miss kena draw in the middle to mirror, sebab enantiomer ni is talking about mirror image. So yang ini Miss kira terbalikkan sahajalah. Kita nak buat mirror image of our skeletal here. So kita buat macam ni sama sahaja, maknanya kita buat reflection of it. Okay, so now kita nak isikan each of the line tu dengan atom. So sebenarnya kalau at the top here, senang kita ambil carbon yang paling banyak. Okay, and the carbon is bonded to our CH2CH3. So make sure carbon tu pada CH2CH3. So dia punya mirror image pun sama sahaja. Sebab tu yang ini senang kita buat di atas sekali. Next, I'm gonna do my OH. So again, carbon tu attach pada oxygen. So kenalah buat carbon tu attach to O. Lepas tu biarlah OH tu terbalik. Okay, next what we have left is H dengan CH3. Tapi tak nak lah, Miss nak buat yang hydrogen tu at the back side. So yang out of plane ni CH3. So again, carbon buat pada CH3. So what is left is our hydrogen. Okay, so apa lagi yang tertinggal adalah we have to label it as enantiomer ataupun our mirror image. So question 1 dah siap. Okay, question 2 sama sahaja macam question 1. Try yourself, tengok dapat tak draw yang sama. But certain question dia tidak bagi senang macam tu sahaja for you to draw. Dia bagi kamu in terms of condensed structure. So kamu sendiri kena check whether ada carbon ke tidak. So I'm gonna draw the expanded structure. Again, carbon must have 4 bond. Lepas tu macam mana nak isi, kita tengok saja berdasarkan our molecular formula. Okay, so right now we have to check one by one carbon kita ni, sebab chiral carbon is the one we have 4 different group attached. First carbon ni attached pada 3 group yang sama, so it is not chiral. The same goes to carbon number 2. Okay, carbon number 3 ni kita tengok ada bonded to 4 different group, maka it is our chiral carbon, so kita labelkan asterisk. So the last carbon ni kita tengok memang attached pada 4, tapi 3 of it is the same group ataupun the same atom, so it is not chiral carbon. Okay, so lepas kita buat condense, yang ini Miss nak buat jadi dah expanded, Miss nak buat condense sikit supaya senang nanti kita nak draw our enantiomer. Okay, yang CH3, CH2 ni jangan lupa condensekan dia. Okay, so and then jangan lupa labelkan our chiral carbon in the middle. So as you can see, kita punya question number 3 ni sebenarnya sebiji sama saja dengan question number 1 kita ni. So how to draw, sama juga dengan example on image on example 1. Example 4 dengan 5 you should try yourself. Okay, tapi question 5 ni Miss tolong buatkan untuk untuk expanded structure. So this is a carboxylic acid, so the C double bond OOH. Lepas tu pada second carbon ada H dengan NH2. Then here we have CH3. Okay, so nanti kamu cuba buat. Okay, yang ini banyak pula dia punya carbon. So we count, so we have 5 carbon. Okay, make sure each carbon ada 5 bond. Okay, so kita isikanlah one by one. Okay, lepas tu we have CH2, CH3. So make sure check one by one which one is chiral carbon. Is it more than one? Macam mana nak draw